A serial killer must look for a way out when he realizes the pop concert he's taking his daughter to is an elaborate trap to catch him. It's a bold premise, and good or bad, there's always something to talk about with a new M. Night Shyamalan movie. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me is Tim.
The internet's #1 Lady Raven fan. That's me.
Welcome all. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together to talk about a movie. It's that simple. And on today's show, we are continuing catch-up season for 2024, and today we're looking at M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, starring Josh Hartnett, which came out during the summer. And we'll dive in. We'll start spoiler-free, of course, in case you've not seen it yet. You can get some general feelings. We'll give you a warning if you wait the spoilers. And, of course, if you are enjoying this show, please do hit the like button on YouTube. It helps out a bunch. And, of course, you can get bonus content over on Patreon, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So the premise for this is...
all business.
Hey, look, you get it out of the way. We can get into the fun and the shenanigans.
Sure.
That's what you're here for.
Ah, yes, that's right.
I look at your face and I think shenanigans.
Hey. All right. Well, I can't argue with that.
A little bit of Shan and a lot of Anigans.
M. Night Shenanigans. That's
M. Night Shenanigans. If I ever somehow still become a movie director, I'm going to take the pseudonym of M. Night Shenanigans.
So this is our second Shyamalan of the year.
Yes. Although the other one was a Patreon episode, but yes, we did review his daughter's directorial debut, The Watchers. So, and that was interesting. We won't say what we thought too much about it, but yeah, it was an interesting movie though. I'll say this coming out of this one: is it good or bad? I knew I wasn't going to be bored by this because Shyamalan makes at least interesting movies, whether or not they're good or bad. So I knew I'd be engaged on some level, and I think his last two movies, I kind of liked both of them. They were both had flaws, but I kind of like that those being Old and Knock at the Cabin. So coming into this, I was like, okay, it's got an interesting premise, and I remember the trailer being quite good. It was like, hey, there's this serial killer played by Josh Hartnett, and he is taking his young daughter to this pop concert for this fictional singer who's like Taylor Swift famous, but is actually M. Night's daughter, who is a singer in real life, in fact, and this is her only movie credit as far as I can tell. But she's playing the singer, but the gimmick of the movie is that somehow the police and the FBI are aware that this serial killer is at this concert, and they've set this trap of like covering all the exits, and they're looking at all the men who are at the concert, and he realizes he's in this situation and has to try and get out. Like, that's the premise of the movie. That's what the trailer kind of sold us on. So it's a cool premise. Arguably it maybe veers a little bit more towards like a thriller than a horror movie, but it felt like it belonged at least on the show for review. If we come to the end and say, hey, it's not that much of a horror movie, then it just won't be eligible for the top 10 of the year, but that's okay. But so yeah, that's the basic gist of the movie. So Tim,
yeah,
what did you think of Trap?
So it's very interesting. I mean, similar to what you were saying, like I was pretty excited for the movie, but I agree. Like I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to genuinely like it, or like it on some ironic level or something. But like you said, Shyamalan makes very interesting choices, and I think there's a few of his things I haven't seen, like Avatar, or that was it Last Earth or something.
Last Airbender. They couldn't call it Avatar technically because of James Cameron's Avatar stole their lunch.
But then what was the other one? Was it After Earth or something?
After Earth, yeah.
Okay.
With another example of nepotism, it was Will Smith and his son.
Yeah. So I mean, I've heard those are just like really pretty bad and kind of hard to get through. So like I haven't seen those, but then aside from that, I find even his quote unquote lesser movies or whatever are still usually pretty interesting, and I feel like he usually has something to say, or he's trying out some type of style, even when it doesn't work. I still think there's a lot to be entertained, and I think that's maybe what kind of happened with this movie. Like, on a technical level, I would probably say that yes, it's a bad movie. Like, there's definitely some weird choices, some things I wouldn't expect. There's like some logic things that you can kind of, poke at and tear apart.
Just to clear up what you just said there, when you say technically, you don't mean like direction and camera work. You mean
right.
You mean technically it's a bad movie for the because I was thinking surely the cinematography is one of the few things that he's always good at. But yeah, there you go.
Oh no, I mean the editing, just I don't know. No, like I would say on paper I could see if someone was arguing that this was like a bad movie, I wouldn't really correct them. However, I don't know, I had a ton of fun with it. Like, okay, it's probably bad, but I also think it's really entertaining. And it's kind of funny how you're saying like, all right, is it more of a thriller? Or is it more horror? Honestly, I think it's like more of a comedy. I
don't know if that's a good thing, Tim, for you to say that. That sounds a little damning.
Well, I don't know. I think people take Shyamalan a little more serious than he always intends to be. I don't know. Sometimes he has like little, like mischievous little stinker vibes to him. Like the thing that's funny about this, and I do think it has a really cool premise, and the trailer looked pretty good. Like, oh, like Josh Hartnett looks like he's playing like a pretty like intense serial killer, but then you watch it and it feels more like a sitcom episode where like someone like they have like two things going on at the same time and they're trying to like do them both or something. Like, I don't know, that's kind of the vibe it was given to me. And I know there's some people that like really didn't like it. I have a friend who said like, oh, it's one of the stupidest movies I've seen in like a long time. And again, I can't fault someone, but I think if you are trying to take it a little serious, I can see why there's a lot of stuff that would rub you the wrong way. But I don't know, like for me, I just thought it was kind of funny, and a lot of the stuff I was like surprised at some of the choices they were making and where it was going. And I don't know, I had fun with it. Definitely not as intense or as serious as I was thinking, which like you said, that might be a bad thing for some people, but for me it was kind of a fun time.
I definitely agree with the sitcom comparison, especially that scene where Kramer slid into the room and slapped some money on the table. I was like, that was weird, but whatever. Bold filmmakers make bold choices. It is a weird movie because I think there's a moment about halfway through this movie where a character just happens to mention that it's the last song of the concert, and I went, wait, we're near the end? And I checked the time, and it was only halfway through the movie, and I thought, wait a minute. I thought the whole premise was that we were at the concert the whole time, and there's actually sections that come after that, and that really threw me off. And I do think there's one or two too many sections. I don't necessarily mind the first one that comes after, because it feels like, okay, for the climax you do something different, but it kind of felt like there was too many sections, and bizarrely, I kind of was enjoying it, and it does kind of have like a sort of don't take it too seriously, but just have fun with the suspense of like, is he going to snap and show just how dangerous he is he keeping his cool? Like Shyamalan does this choice where he like sometimes if he wants the scene to feel uncomfortable, he'll just point the camera right at the actor's eyes, and the actor will just like act right at the camera, and it's like, I feel uncomfortable because this is not how you do it.
There's definitely some interesting choices, like a lot of those like close-up scenes when two characters are talking. Again, if it doesn't work for you, that's fine, but I like that he is making like these choices. Like it certainly has a style to it.
Yeah, honestly, my biggest problem with the movie really is that I felt like because it goes through these different sections, that characters who felt like they were important to my enjoyment of the movie kind of get left behind for a while sometimes. And
that's fair.
And it kind of like, I mean, I don't really spoil anything, but the final section, the big climax of the movie, kind of revolves around a character that was only just introduced, and I don't really care about, because the movie's actually made me care about other things in other relationships. So I think there is some things I'll actually ding against it that I do think makes it feel very uneven and very weird from a pacing perspective.
Oh yeah, definitely can't argue that.
Yeah, but
I was pretty surprised at some, kind of like you're saying, the sections of it. I also was like, oh, I'm surprised we're going here, and then, Hartnett is always, kind of your through line, throughout the whole movie, but then it feels like each section kind of has its like, I don't know if I want to say like adversary or whatever, or like I guess person he's playing against. So I was kind of surprised that it's like, oh, this person's like a main character now. Yeah,
a second lead, we'll say. Each section has kind of a different lead, like that opposes him or is with him in some form or fashion, and that was kind of a surprise in a lot of ways. So, and what was so funny is that I definitely heard people joke about this being like a giant like example of nepotism, like, with the Shyamalan having his daughter playing this pivotal kind of role of the singer, and it happens to be a fictional version of what she's actually trying to do in real life. I don't know if she's anywhere near as successful as this in real life, or if it's totally like glowing her up to just make her look like this superstar for teen girls or whatever. But I will say, in that capacity, I had no problem with it. I do think once she actually has some scenes she has to act in, I'm like, okay, I can tell you're not an actor now. It's really sticking out that you're not actually an actor, and that's whatever. But I think the direction's always interesting. I think it does some cool stuff and there's cool moments. I would say it kind of doesn't all come together as much as I would like. Having said that, though, even the final 30 seconds did something I liked. Like, it revealed something in the final 30 seconds. And this is not like a big Shyamalan twist or anything like that, but there's just like a little thing it reveals that I thought, oh, I really liked how he just did that. I liked the choices he made to show that on camera.
You're talking about the couple of seconds, like, after the credits, the little...
No, not the mid-credit.
Comedic scene.
Not the stinger, no. The actual ending, but... yes, this has a little... And the stinger, like, if regardless of the rest of the movie and arguing what genre it fits into, that stinger is a comedy scene. Like, that singer is just there to make you laugh. Which is maybe Shyamalan's way of saying, as you walk out the theater, hey, don't take this too seriously, where we were just having some fun. Which is fine. So I would say I'm mixed. I would say, like, out of the 3 movies that he's done most recently, this, Knock at the Cabin, and Old, I think this one has the best premise, but is probably the weakest movie of the 3.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with that. Yeah, because the other ones I thought were a bit more consistent, and again,
yes,
I don't know. There was there actually genuinely was like a lot of stuff that I liked about this, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's as good of a put together final package as those other ones. But again, yeah, I'm liking all this kind of new stuff that he's doing.
Yeah, keep experimenting, keep doing weird little ideas. Like, I'm definitely not against it.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like some people maybe just like have like still after everything have weirdly high expectations for him. Like, I don't know if we'll ever get like another like Sixth Sense or Unbreakable from him, but I feel like some people like, I don't know, still act like that. So then when a movie comes out, they're just like, oh man, this is so bad and stuff. I was like, I don't know, just go with it. Just have some fun.
What's so funny is I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like too many people just hold a grudge for some reason because he made a couple of real turds, with The Happening and whatever. And like, they're just determined to shit on anything he makes now. Maybe both are true. Maybe there's probably people that fall into both camps, but that's definitely the vibe I get from some people, is that they're just, the knives are out and they're like, oh, they're just waiting to chew it up. But like I said at the start of this, I expected to, good or bad, be engaged in what was happening on screen, and I was always engaged in what was happening on screen. I know this about Shyamalan now, is that he is a director, and I can sort of like see him making directorial choices as I watch the movie, and I enjoy that about his movies. I enjoy saying, hey, you framed this shot kind of in an interesting way in this moment to make it feel like an oddly off killer scene, or you did this little thing here with the sound, or you did this little choice with how you revealed this moment. And almost always I'm going, oh, that was a neat choice, or I'm going, oh, that was an interesting thing. It's usually script things more than anything where I feel like I'm nitpicking and critiquing and saying, oh, this doesn't quite add up or whatever.
Yeah, I will wait till spoilers, but there's like definitely some lines in here that made me like laugh out loud. Like, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's a great compliment, though. Like, I don't know, especially like for me personally, I don't have as much time to watch movies. I'm usually so tired at night that like it's, yeah, a lot of times it's pretty hard, for something to hold my attention. And yeah, that's something, I can say with, his last couple of movies that, they're not boring. Like that, it's not like I'm watching and then 10 minutes in I'm checking out and like want to look at my phone or something.
I've got the perfect comparison point for this, just because I happened to watch it right before Christmas. But I saw Red 1, Tim.
Oh, okay.
And it's the most bland, generic Hollywood thing, filled with CG, directions just nothing. It's just the most basic looking thing ever. And it was just a chore to sit through, because it was just, I didn't care about anything that was happening with the lame jokes and whatever. When this is being funny, whether it's intentional or not, it is being funny. Like, there's definitely just like weirdness to it and little quirky things about it, which there's nothing quirky in Red 1. It's just, I don't know, it feels like it came out the cookie cutter factory. Like they cookie cut a whole movie and just shat it out.
Yeah, I put that on my queue, but I haven't watched it yet.
Well, it's too late now. You can't watch it after Christmas.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think we need to put a bit of a pause on like all these high level Santa movies. Like they're just, I mean, it's totally fine to use like Santa as a character and stuff. But I think we just need a break for right now, because none of them have been really good.
Violent Night was okay.
It was okay. That was probably the best of the example of this type of thing. But even that, I don't feel like it, really like reached like amazing heights or anything.
Yeah, because by comparison, Red 1 has like the North Pole's like an entire CG city, right? And there's like a snowmobile chase through it, and it's like a whole metropolis they're going through. Yeah, so. Yeah.
Is that like is it like for adults? Is it like R-rated, or is it?
It's not R-rated.
Like, it's not a family movie, right?
It's
kind of in between.
It's skirting the line. It's like, hey, kids can see this, but there's definitely some little lines here or there that are for the adults, but they can't go too racy with it because it's PG-13 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, I think you could probably watch Trap with most of the family. Like, nothing too bad. I mean,
hey, it was made by father and daughter, so like fathers and daughters should watch this together. Actually,
absolutely.
Speaking of daughters here, I actually think the actress playing the kid in the movie is really good.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, Riley's the character, but Ariel Donoghue is the actress. I think she does such a great, and part of this is the script. As much as I'm going to complain about some of the script choices in other ways, I think her performance in the script does such a good job of giving you a likable, well, she maybe 12-year-old girl, right, who's excited about this concert like a kid would be for their favorite pop star, and it's always endearing. This would so easily be the most annoying character in the movie. There's so many other versions of this where you'd hate this kid. Bizarrely, she's kind of the heart of the movie, because the entire time, instead of like getting into just like, oh, I'm kind of rooting for the killer in a weird way because I want to see him get away with all this, the thing that was giving the movie some sense of weight is I'm like, I kind of feel bad that she's going to find out this out about her dad, because because she doesn't deserve to have a father who's a monster. So yeah, actually, I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, I actually think the relationship between them is pretty sweet too. Like it's funny. Again, this is kind of like that sitcom-y thing where so much of the movie is him trying to find ways to escape. But I like whenever he's reminded that he's like, trying to be the perfect dad, and he's like, oh, like maybe I can use this to my advantage. And then like his daughter's like, oh, dad, like what's going on? You're acting weird. And he has to kind of like snap back and be like, oh, nothing, honey. So I actually thought they had a good relationship.
Yeah, and I won't spoil it, but there's like a kind of like a subplot about the daughter's relationship with some other kids that I got oddly invested in, I have to say. I was kind of like the payoff to it I really liked. Yeah. So, it's like there's definitely positives in here, and I think that's and Josh Hartnett, he obviously is a lead role. He's definitely like I think he's solid. I think some people probably come away from this movie thinking he's terrible in this, but I don't think it's because he's terrible. I think it's because Shyamalan is telling him, hey, I want this weird awkwardness in this scene where you're looking right at the camera and stuff like that.
Right,
and I think a lot of normies who don't think about movies that they're watching are just going to go, he's terrible in this. This is weird. But I think that's the point, is that it's kind of uncomfortable and weird the way that he's just kind of like half smirking at the camera. So, I mean, I accept it because it's clearly an intentional choice that has been made. Whether you like it or not is entirely up to the viewer, but I don't know. I did not mind them experimenting with like how to make him feel kind of weird.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, you know, you're watching it through the lens of the movie, so knowing that he's like this killer, of course it's going to come off weird when he's being like super nice and stuff. But I feel like in the reality of the movie, like most people would be like, oh, like, yeah, this guy, maybe he's a little weird, but he seems pretty nice. I mean, to the point where like, seems like so many people in the movie are actively going out of their way to help him. Like, it's kind of funny.
He's very good at what he does in lying about who he is. The one thing I will critique, which just felt like shoehorned in as soon as it popped up, was, and I don't know if this is a spoiler to say this is kind of happening, but there's kind of a thing in this movie where he kind of sees visions of shut up. He kind of sees visions of like an old woman.
Oh, sure.
And as soon as that happened for the first time, I'm like, what? This movie doesn't need this. What is this?
Yeah,
stop this right now.
That's a little weird. Yeah.
Like, we're not doing the serious, like Jason Voorhees seeing the mother and he's like vision bullshit. We don't need that for this character. Come on now. Yeah. Right? I mean, what's next? You're going to show up on a horse? Rob Zombie sends his regards.
Oh, man. Yeah. That was definitely a weird thing that wasn't needed. I mean, luckily it's not like that much of the movie.
No, it doesn't show up that much, but they kind of like bring it back one or two times near the end where I was like, yeah, okay, I don't remind me you did this movie, just let it go. I was willing to forget. Forgive perhaps, but certainly forget.
Yeah.
Oh dear. And I'll leave, I feel like any other cast members that are notable, I mean, well, I can say who the actor is. I just can't say who they're playing. But like Alison Pill shows up at one point as a character. Yeah. So you know, if you like her from other things, you'll know who she is. Yeah, I mentioned Saleka Shyamalan plays the singer, who is fine in that role. I think, I don't. Like, I think people are going to criticize her acting in the more normal dialogue scenes that like she has. And don't get me wrong, I could tell she wasn't an actor. I wasn't feeling tortured by it though. It wasn't like, I don't know, if in a weird way it almost, it worked in the context a little bit, I guess. I'll just say, I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, and I would say if we're getting more of her early on, maybe it would have been a bit more jarring. But I think by the time we're getting more of those scenes, like I'm already kind of invested in the roller coaster ride and want to see where it's going, that it didn't bother me that much. Yeah,
it is definitely a roller coaster ride of a movie. It's very much, you know, a lot of it's him trying to like sort of figure out like, okay, can I leave through this way? Can I, you know, is this a possible exit? Can I do this? Can I do that? Oh, my daughter's still around. I have to deal with my daughter. Oh no. Like all these things are still sort of running throughout a lot of the movie, but it does change up quite a bit after the fact, which for a surprising chunk of the runtime. So we'll get into all that stuff in spoilers. As far as anything else goes, I don't think I have much more to add before we get into spoilers. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to mention.
No. Yeah, I think the meat of it is going to be kind of talking about the story and stuff. So
yes, and the cat's got some opinions on that matter as well. Yes.
He snuck back in at some point. I didn't notice.
How did he sneak back in?
I don't know, but now he's trapped.
I don't know. Once in a while, I'll see like the wife's hand just kind of like open the door slightly, but I never noticed it. So if that was the case this time, I don't know. Otherwise, some phantom like cat phasing through the door has been going on.
Yeah.
That'd be scary. We can't have the cats teleporting. They're already so deadly. Oh
no, yeah, that'd just be utter chaos.
Yes.
Unless, I mean, if it's Kitty Pryde, that's fine. Like she can phase through.
Do you know, I wasn't even trying to make a Kitty Pryde joke when I made that joke. I really wasn't, but you're right. There is a character called Kitty whose superpower is phasing through objects. Spoilers for Trap, everyone. So we'll dive into it. So yeah, the movie just starts with like them driving to the concert, and the first thing they do, and a little bit of back and forth, and like just kind of getting to know the characters and what their relationship's like. You know, we find out quite early on that this is a reward for getting good grades. You know, he's like, oh, you got 3 A's and a B, so you get your concert. So he's taking her to the thing. The first thing they do is that they all sort of gather around like the entrance to the stadium so they can get a glimpse of her getting out of the tour bus or whatever it is. Well, to be fair, there's a good little joke here where they all start to cheer because the door opens, and then like just like one of the guards or whoever it is walks out, and they all just go, "Boo! We don't want you, middle-aged man. Go away."
Now, I did hear like a lot of people criticize some of the aspects of the concert. I think people are saying like, oh, like, you know, who has like this giant concert like in the middle of the afternoon or whatever, or and I know they have like a line with like, oh, like I'm so glad she added this afternoon concert, blah blah blah. But I don't know, not a lot of that stuff bothered me. I'm not much of a concert goer, so I don't know, I couldn't tell you if this like felt unrealistic or
honestly the
whatever.
only part for me that stuck out was when it ended and like people were going outside and it was still daytime. I thought, oh, that's a bit strange, but then I remembered the line about it being an afternoon time because of the sellouts. Although I think it's implied really that it's more of a trap because because they would have had to have had the concert scheduled before he bought tickets and it became a trap. But at one point I was thinking, is there an implication where they actually asked her to put on an extra date? Whatever, but given what we find out about the tickets later, I don't think that's the case. I think it's just extra afternoon date, so because there was too much demand and here they are. So they do explain it, like maybe they never do that in real life and that's fine, but they do give you a line in the movie to explain it. They do say, hey, this is why it's an afternoon show.
Totally fine. I don't need like too much real worldness when it comes to the show.
I mean, the show itself looked like I didn't really go to pop concerts, but it looked what I expect them to look like.
Yeah, I would say I think some people criticize it where it's like, oh, like it doesn't seem like it would be on the level of someone like Taylor Swift, who it seems like they're trying to indicate that that's kind of who this person.
They didn't, Tim. They did not have the budget for all those extras or the CG required to put those extras in the background.
Yeah, no, like which again, I'm like that's not like if you're a live music aficionado and you love pop concerts and you want to poke holes with stuff like that, whatever. But I mean, to me, it's like I don't know, you kind of just nitpicking at that point.
Honestly, the only thing that stuck out to me as far as like the concert going experience is that it felt like there was a lot of times when people were all out like buying stuff when she was still singing, and I thought, do people actually? I feel like they wouldn't. Maybe the dads who are only there to take their kids there might do it, but like surely, because at one point like the girl's out with him, like talking about stuff and trying to get a T-shirt, and she's like, "Hey, I like this song. Let's go back in." And I'm like, I don't believe she would leave while the concert's ongoing, given how excited she was about seeing this Raven lady.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What was her name? What was the pop singer's name?
Lady Raven.
Lady Raven, that's it. Right, yes. Yes, she's a big Teen Titans fan.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really have much to say about that stuff. Like I don't know, the songs sounded fine. Like okay, yeah, these are the kind of pop songs that I could see these characters liking.
Sure. Yeah. Sounded like music I didn't listen to, which made it sound accurate to me, so good enough. But yeah, so yeah, there's
would have been better if it was like a hardcore death metal kind of band.
Yeah, but then I'd have to change the character to be this like gothy teenager who like hates everything, and then that touching relationship with her dad wouldn't be there because she'd be like, "I hate you, Dad.
Yeah,
I hate everything."
I mean, we kind of already mentioned it, but again, I did find their relationship to be pretty sweet. Like you can tell that, like she loves her dad and stuff, but she is like a little like embarrassed by him at times. Like, there's a little bit of the like, oh, come on, Dad, like, enough with the jokes or whatever, or like, don't say that. But it was never like, sometimes in a movie they kind of overdo it in like an annoying way where it's like, oh, this like girl just hates her dad or whatever. Like in here it was like, it was like a cute like.
It genuinely felt natural. It felt like, see, when she was eating whatever they were having, I don't know if it was a pretzel or something, but they were eating something, and she was like chewing on something as he was like, hey, so crispy means good, and she's explaining, yeah, you see, I walk in the house, it's so crispy. So can I say it's deep fried? And she's like, no, that's stupid, never say that. It's like, but deep fried's better than crispy.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I'm placing that in a different scene, but there was a scene where she was eating, and it felt very natural the way they were bantering. And he sort of says something's crispy later on, and it feels like a nice little callback to the previous conversation. So
it was nice.
Yeah, I think that stuff's good. Like I was, so let's get into the saga of Jodie and the other girls. Who I actually never thought we'd see these characters, because it's just something the dad tries to like get her to open up when they're waiting in the line at the start, and he's like, "Hey, so do you want to talk about the girls at school?" And she's, I don't want to talk about it, Dad. And then it's when they're sitting down to get a snack or whatever, where she opens up and decides to tell him that, hey, look, they're just leaving me out of things. Like, they don't want me included in their stuff. Like, I don't think we're friends anymore. And he's like, oh, that sucks. That must feel pretty crap. And it feels like, this is the thing, you think being secretly a serial killer means that all of his advice would be, like, awful, or that he'd be struggling to do this. But he's actually, you know, being a nice enough dad about it, and just sort of try to, you know, pep her up and whatever, and say, oh, you'll find new friends, whatever.
Yeah. And it's nice that, like, it wasn't this huge, like, earth-shattering thing. Like, I feel like so many movies, it would be like, they made a deep fake of me and sent it to the whole school or something. Like, it's nothing crazy. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, like, you know, we're drifting apart and they're not inviting me to stuff. And
yeah, what's funny about it is the people who make a big deal about it are the parents, particularly because what progresses it is that when he's about sneaking around a little bit later on, he runs into what turns out to be Jodie's mum. Jodie and her friend are at the concert with her. And she's like all awkwardly, oh, I know the girls have had, but you know what teenage girls are like, right? Yeah, they're going through a weird rough patch, but I'm sure they would love to, like, you know, make up with her. And and he's like, he's frustrated because he's trying to find an exit, and he's worried that he's going to go away for life for butchering people up with an axe. But he's like, hey, you're right, I am upset. That really hurt her. But we'll talk about this later. And then he bumps into her again a little bit later, and again the mum's like, no, we should talk about this. And he's trying to get away. He's like, don't make a scene, there's police standing right there, I don't want them to talk to me. And she's like adamant they have to do something, and he just sort of like has to think on his feet, and he's like, look, how about on Saturday we'll get them pizza together, they can hang out. How's that's okay? And she's like, okay, yeah, I'll tell Jodie, that's a great idea. And we find out that they're here because she's like, oh yeah, we're up in section whatever. And the payoff to all this is, and we'll explain the context for this later, but the payoff to this is that when Riley ends up being picked to be the girl who goes on stage and dances with the singer, it cuts to this mum, and the first time we ever see Jodie and her friend is this moment where they just look like they're shitting a brick, because the girl that they've decided to cut out of their life is the one that's on stage dancing with the super mega pop star. And I'll be honest, I really enjoyed them eating shit in this scene.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a great payoff, and it tells you, it's so funny because, yeah, I think this is the only time we actually see Jodie or whatever, but, like, you know the character so well just from this little interaction where you just see her, like, just screaming at her mom, and then, and again, we didn't see much of the mom before, but I feel like we get so much context for her and her parenting style, and like
it's all the things she's not saying as she's trying to talk around stuff, and you get a clear picture of it.
And I think I like the closed captions on, so I couldn't really hear her say this, but I think like the closed captioning said, like, the mom says something like, you little beast, or something to
she does that. I heard that. And my favorite thing is that the one who's not Jodie, like her best friend or whoever, is just standing like the entire time, her mouth's just like open with this disgusted look in her face, like, Riley's a bitch, how dare she be the one to go up there like this.
And I guess we don't really see it, but I wonder if it's kind of implied that, like, maybe she's been drinking or something a little bit as, like, the show's been going on.
Oh, the mum.
Yeah.
Like,
the first,
the 12-year-olds are just like collapsing all over.
Like the first interaction they have, you know, she is pretty, like, you know, she seems pretty fake, but she's trying to be nice. And then the second one, like, she gets like a little upset, and she says, like, you know, like, I have a dark side, like, you don't want to mess with me.
Which is funny because he's the one that has literally a dark side. Yes. There you go.
But then and then again, that's like a lot of the fun of the movie is like, okay, is he gonna like snap right now and like do something to this lady? But it kind of seems like he wants to, but then yeah, he gets like very calm, and like you said, he's like, you know what, let's go out for pizza. And so yeah, I mean, all this stuff is really good. Like, it's just like little bits and pieces here, but it just adds like a lot of flavor to the movie.
Yeah, he's good at pretending, or he's good at acting at performing normal. If they, because the character's putting on a performance. Like, he is trying to act quote unquote normal when he's doing these things, and it feels like it feels like he's forcing it. Like, it's not natural for him to act this way, but he's putting it on.
Yeah, and I think that's very like intentional with these scenes. Like we're talking about, these are like parts where they do like these close-ups on him, so it's like he's just square, like in middle of the camera, like looking straight at you as he's talking and putting on this show, which again, like, seems like a very specific thing that like Shyamalan's trying to do, and it is kind of like unsettling for the viewer to, it's like, oh, like he's like right in our face, but again, like that's kind of the point of it, and I don't know, I think it works well.
It's so funny about this payoff as well to the kid thing is that it's like, because it's a movie about a killer, right? And obviously he does. We don't actually see him do that much heinous stuff, because most of it's implied and like stuff that he's done in the past. The only thing we actually see him do is he makes the deep fryer kind of like explode on a woman's face, and she's like badly scarred and burned. Yeah. But because we don't see him do much, we're kind of waiting for that moment to bubble up. But bizarrely, this payoff to, like, because it's like a movie with a killer, you think, well, it's making us not like this mum character, so are we going to enjoy seeing her get killed later? And I kind of like that in essence we actually just saw her get her and the girls got the punishment that fit the crime. Like, them being pissed off that Riley's getting to do this is the right amount, because it's not cruel, but it's just desserts to have them to eat the shit, and that's what makes it fun. So that's good.
And then of course the thing is, I mean, it sucks to think about, but like like they get their just desserts, but then they can easily bounce back, and like any jealousy or whatever they have, they can just be like, oh, like once they find out who her dad is, because this is going to be like a huge news story.
They're going to move town. They're not staying in the same town after this. They're not going to the family barbecue next door, having it turns out their husband is the butcher. Yeah, that's not happening. And so they do a thing here actually where when he does that thing with the deep fryer and it explodes in this woman's face. When he comes back, because he's up in the roof for a bit, we'll talk about that, but when he comes back down, he stares at her, and Shyamalan does this thing where he does like a shot looking right at him over his at his face, but he's like half off screen. It's like he's right at the edge of the frame, and he's just sort of like peeking into the frame, and the rest of it's very out of focus. And this is like, oh, this is the first time I've actually seen him do something like killer-esque in the movie, and this is like the visual style that comes with it, and it's so effective and memorable a shot that later on when we see this again in like a moment that comes out of nowhere, as a viewer it's because he wants to kill the person he's looking at, because this is the type of moment the cinematography's telling us he's feeling that desire right now, that he's got a murder boner, or whatever you want to call it, right? And it's when he's looking at the singer later on as she's getting off stage, and you're like, oh no, he's decided that that's his victim, and I thought at that point the rest of the movie to some extent was going to be him trying to make her his next victim. And I'm like, this is a very high profile victim, by the way. If you want to not get caught, maybe this is the worst choice you could possibly make. But maybe that's the thrill. Maybe that's like, oh, if I can pull this off and get away with it, then I'm like, I'm the best serial killer since, Jack the Ripper, I guess. To quote Terrifier 3.
It's so funny because there's things like that in the movie that are like, oh, like this is very good and very smart, and then there's just other parts that are just like, huh, what are we doing?
Yeah, and some of it is like, so just to sort of stick in the first like half, right? Let's just stay to the first half right now. So a number of things happen during this. Obviously, he finds out, he starts noticing all the police, and he's seen them like up at all the exits, and he's seen them at all the exits outside as well, in the foyer and all the places where they're selling stuff. And it's the second time he goes out where he's like trying to buy the t-shirt, and he's really nice about it because there's only one left. He's like, no, let the other girl have it. We'll get you something else. Yeah.
I don't know. This scene makes me laugh because it's so strange because yeah, like they're just standing at the t-shirt line or whatever, and you know, Riley's like, oh, I want that shirt. And then as soon as she says that, the girl next to her is like, actually, I want it. And she's like, I've been standing here forever. And it's like, then why didn't you say anything? Like, if you've been standing there so long, like, why didn't you tell him that that's the shirt you want?
Yeah, and he also says, like, hey, that's the last one. But he's like, hey, buddy, you were so nice at de-escalating that so there wasn't a fight. Like, come back in like 10 minutes, I'll go get some more. And I thought, if you have to go get some more anyway, why are you waiting 10? Like, if there's a box of them in the storeroom, then why are you waiting 10 minutes? It's kind of weird, but yeah, obviously it sets up important scenes that he's going to have. But still, it's a weird contrivance for the sake of the movie doing what it wants to do.
Yeah, and again, like I can see maybe people not liking how convenient this is or whatever, but it made me laugh, like how this guy's just instantly like. Cooper's best friend, Cooper, Josh Hartnett's character, he's like, he's just that simple thing of just being like, hey, let's let the other girl have the shirt, makes him say, you know what, you're a pretty good person. I'm going to tell you every secret we have going on.
Well, that becomes the running gag with this character, is that he's so trusting, and Josh Hartnett's like, psst, psst, over here. Hey, buddy, is there something going on today? Is something wrong? There's a lot of police here. And he's like, oh, well... do you know the butcher? And he's like, yeah, I've heard of him. What's going on? And so this is the character that explains to him, yeah, don't tell anyone this, but this is a trap. They think he's here. So like there's people everywhere and all that. And like he's like, oh wow. He's like, so that's like the first interaction, right? And when he comes back to get the t-shirt, and the guy's like, yeah, I'm going to go to the back room just now. And Josh Hartnett's like, hey, can I walk with you? And he's like, yeah, sure, but like, you're going to take him into the staff-only area where all the stock is? That's weird, but okay, right? So he's so trusting.
By the way, we also have a secret code that we're supposed to say. Oh, what's the secret code? Oh, it's Hamilton. It's like, okay, at some point you have to stop this. Like, it's okay if you like the guy, but you can't be like telling them everything.
Yeah, I mean, this was genuinely quite funny, though. To be fair to him, now admittedly he's still an idiot for saying it, but Josh Hartnett does like ask him, hey, so have they caught the guy yet? So that's what gets him talking about it again. He's like, yeah, we had to go through protocols, and they sort of taught us what to do in case they find him or we think we see him, and we've got a code word to say there's something going on, or that we're safe or whatever. And obviously they do the whole tense bit here where he's opening the box with a box cutter, and he says, hey, can you hold this? So Josh Hartnett's now holding this open box cutter, and it's like, oh, is he going to be tempted? But no, he just like at the end, he sort of was like, hey, remember this? And he sort of closes it. Don't want to cut yourself. And he's like, thanks, buddy. You're my new best friend. Yeah, I was entertained. I mean, good or bad, I don't know, but I was entertained by this.
Oh no, yeah, 100%. Like, if I'm analyzing this as like a very serious thriller, then obviously I'm gonna be like, oh, this is weird and out of place and feels so forced. But again, if I'm just kind of going for the ride and treating it like a little bit of like a schlock kind of whatever piece of popcorn, it works. It's it's good.
Yeah, so that's that little. And obviously we see him do a bunch of things to sneak around. He steals this guy's key card so that he can get into some other areas, and he actually goes into a secret area where there's lockers, and then looks to the side, and there's an entire SWAT team getting a briefing over what to do with this guy. So he puts the key card sort of badge on his thing, and he actually does. There's a great little scene where he has to sort of like walk through the SWAT team, be like, excuse me, I'm just trying to get the coffee, excuse me. And then he sort of stands awkwardly with the other SWAT team guy at the coffee table and saying, hey, do you want a donut? And sort of like hands him some stuff.
You know what I like, though, is they do a good job of never making it like... It does seem a bit unbelievable that so many of these people are just willing to help him out, but I do always buy that, like, he's charming in a way that, like, can possibly, like, disarm people. Like, they shouldn't give him that much information, but, like, I can see why people might not, be alarmed that he's at this place or whatever. Like, sure. There was a good part there where, when, like, the cops comes up to him and is like, hey, man, like, do you have any, like, sugar or whatever? And, like, he just does a good job of...
He's like, oh, like, I feel like Steve was meant to refill that, and then he goes out of the cupboard to look for it.
Yeah, and then, like, I think it just shows, like, he has that kind of serial killer thing where, he can just be so good at, like, faking something.
Well,
and,
that's a point his wife makes later, is that she was starting to notice that he could just lie on cue really naturally, and it was actually kind of disturbing.
But this is, again, just a little simple scene, but I liked it because I feel like other movies, he might be like, sugar, just see, where could it be? And then like he opens 5 drawers, and instead it's like, oh no, I just opened the one that it's probably going to be in, and here it is, and then I'm not even making a big deal about it,
And to be fair, I don't think anyone in this scene gives him any information. He steals one of the radios, right? But he doesn't. No one gives him information. Like, none of the police characters in this that he interacts with ever like tell him anything that he's not supposed to know. Really, the closest, I guess, is when he goes up on the roof. This is after the deep fryer incident, where he like steals an apron and goes up to the roof to sort of check it out. And of course, the SWAT team guy's up here as well. And like, hey, what are you doing up here? He's like, oh, there was an accident downstairs. Someone's face get melted off. And I'm like, oh, that's such a good lie, because it's not a lie. Technically, it's true. Like, she did just get her face melted off. And the guy calls it in, and he's like, yep, there's some sort of fry cook accident downstairs. His story checks out. And they do ask for his code word, and they say, hey, can you give me the card you were given at the briefing? And he just kind of goes, oh yeah, sure. He starts patting himself like he's looking for his wallet. Obviously, he thinks he's going to have to say, my wallet's not on me, I don't have it, sorry. But he finds a wallet in the apron that he just stole, and he's like, oh, here it is. And again, he plays it very naturally, like you say. He doesn't do like a whole song and dance of being nervous necessarily, in a way that I would expect most movies to play it, which I actually quite liked.
Exactly.
So, I agree with that. That's a good point.
There's also the scene too where he just like randomly pushes this woman down the stairs.
Yeah, he's got the daughter with him, and he's basically wants to make a break for it. So he tries to push he goes up to a woman who's standing over at the stairs, just nudges her over, and she goes flying. And the 2 police at the front door run over to her. So he grabs the daughter and runs down, trying to make an excuse for, like, let's just go outside for a minute, honey. Let's just go outside for a minute. But as soon as he gets there and looks outside the windows, he sees that there's just more cops right outside the door. It really won't work. So
I like any of those scenes where like he tries to get his daughter to do something, and she's just like, huh, what are you talking about? Like, when he's like, oh, do you see that door opening in the floor? Like, we should go in there. She's like, what?
Yeah,
what do you mean?
For more context to this, right? So part of the concert is that there's a surprise like guest singer, right? Someone she's collaborated. She's like, hey, I wrote this next song with, I don't know, I'll just say Bon Jovi. Right, it wasn't Bon Jovi, but I'll just say Bon Jovi because I don't remember who it was. And she's like, hey, I wrote this next song with Bon Jovi. It's a shame he's not here to sing it. And as soon as she says that, Darcy's like, ah, because she's hitting at it. And then she's like, hey, what if we all screamed his name? Maybe he'll hear us. And they all scream his name, Bon Jovi. Hey. And yeah, so in the middle of the crowd, right next to where our main characters are sitting, a trap door opens, and a sort of like these stairs like come up out the ground and give him this big over the top entrance, and like everyone's screaming, and Josh Hartnett just turns to her and says, hey, that trapdoor's pretty cool. Why don't we jump down there and see where it goes? Could be cool, right? And the girl's like, what? What are you talking about? We're not going to jump into the trap door. I'm pretty sure that would be illegal.
Yeah. It's like there might be some cool costumes or props down there. She's like, what? No.
No, I want to watch the concert. That's why I wanted to come here, you fool. And then, of course, the big play that he has is when she mentions there's this part of her concert near the end where she always has, like, she picks a teenage girl out of the audience to go up and be like the best friend of the night, which means she goes up and dances with her on stage. And it's like, oh my God, imagine if it could be me. And he's like, it's specifically when she says, and you get to go backstage after, where the camera, and again, this is good direction, the camera tracks into him as she's saying that, and he's just like, backstage, really? Backstage. Because that's like the one place where maybe you could get out of the building without encountering the police. So his play to try and achieve this, to Wallace, and I was thinking at this point, like, okay, what possible what could he, like, is he going to go out to his t-shirt buddy and be like, hey, could you put in a good word and get my daughter picked? No. Yeah. He goes up to M. Night Shyamalan, right? He's got his cameo, as he always does, and M. Night Shyamalan is part of the crew, and he's like, oh, hey, you work with the crew? And he's like, yeah, actually, the singer's my niece. And I'm like, big stretch for you, M. Night. You really put yourself outside of your box. Like, I can't play her father. That's too on the nose. I'll play her uncle.
Oh, it's even better than that. It's really funny because he says, oh yeah, like I'm her uncle, you know, her mother's brother. Like he explained,
Right, yeah,
like
right.
I was like, oh yeah, in case you don't know what an uncle is. It was like such a weird line.
And what's so funny is that Josh Hartnett's already so awkward and pretending to be normal that he just sort of rolls on through it. He's like, I'm not even going to address. I'm not even going to address that was such a weird way to say that. I'm just going to keep going. But
It's little stuff like that that makes me think like, okay, like Shyamalan has to be like self-aware, right? Like he can't. I don't know.
I
like,
think so. He must be. Because that is, you're right. I'd forgotten about that, and that is legitimately a funny little thing added on.
Yeah.
Just the explanation of what an uncle is. So then, Josh Hartnett actually has a good idea. I did not see this coming, so props to the character, or I guess the writer, for thinking of this. Where he leans in and goes, "Yeah, that's my daughter over there, jumping up and down. I'm so happy and proud of her. She just got over leukemia," and you just see Shyamalan go, "Oh." Leukemia, like, yeah, she's fine now, but she, you know, she's a brave soldier. She got through it, and this is a reward for beating cancer. And he's like, "Oh, what seat are you guys in?" And I'm like, "Oh, you sneaky bastard! You sneaky! You've rigged this. Like, of course they're going to pick the cancer survivor." I like to think there's like a kid with cancer there. Who, oh no, they don't announce this is why they've picked her, obviously. But if they did announce it, I just like to think the kid with cancer who might actually die from it is sitting there going, "But she got to beat cancer. What? Why don't I get to be the one on stage?"
Good point. Yeah, like I wonder if he hadn't gone up to him, like how else would they have picked it?
I think it's just random. Well, that's what they're saying anyway. I don't know.
But the movie does a good job of like keeping you on your toes. Like, I mean, it already starts off with a fun premise, and then part of what's, you know, interesting about something like this is continuing to find ways where, you know, he wants to escape, and then you have to like shut it down. Okay, we can't go that way. And then I think they do a good job of exploring like the different, you know, things that he can try to do and then not working, and then
it's basically he's trying to problem solve and he's looking for all the possible solutions, and every single time he comes up short, and it's like, oh god, he's getting more and more into a corner. How's he going to get out of this? And then it's this is like the big gambit. This is the Queen's gambit of his entire thing is, can I get it so that my daughter's the one that's picked for this dance thing to go backstage, and there's my out. And obviously from there it's like, okay, where does that go from there, so on and so on. I will say, so at some point throughout this as well, it's been established that they've got some like hotshot, like old British lady who's like a profiler in to like head up the investigation. Because when he steals the walkie-talkie or the radio, he starts listening to some of the things that they're hearing, and she's like on it, like explaining, oh, this is his like character profile. He's probably this age, this type of person. We know he's got a tattoo of some kind on his arm. Which when he hears that, he covers it up. He gets like an armband to cover it up.
And again, this is like, it's a little over the top, but it's like funny because it's like she just always, or he's always like listening in, like right as she's saying something very important, or like right as he's about to do something, you know, he's like, maybe I'll pull the fire alarm. Then she's like, he'll probably feel trapped and do something like pull a fire alarm. He's like, oh, okay, not gonna do that. But so I mean, I didn't make this connection at first, but do you know who plays the profiler?
I looked her up before I started, so I didn't know her, but I know she was in The Parent Trap. It was just a feeling where you're going with this.
It's Hayley Mills, who, I mean, I'm not too familiar with her, but I think it's my brother, like, actually told me, like, after the movie that it's like, oh, yeah, he got, like, the girl from The Parent Trap, which is just a very funny, like, meta joke. Like, oh, like, I mean, the movie is essentially a parent trap. So.
Yes, it's amusing. I actually kind of appreciated that he's like, it's okay. It felt like a very natural plan to go to. Is I'm just going to pull the fire alarm, and then the chaos, that's their chance to get out. But then he hears that they've prepped for that. They're waiting for it. They're going to make everyone like wait outside and like filter through them. Like he knows it's not going to work. So again, I like the like here's possible solution. No, it's not going to work. Okay, what possible other thing can you think of? Oh, that's actually a good idea. That won't work either. I like that sequence of thinking through it. But
it keeps you on your toes, and it makes like the movie, at least this, I guess probably about like first half or so, that's at the concert, like There's stuff I like afterwards, but for me, this was like the meat of the movie that I enjoyed, and
for sure, yeah.
Keeps it interesting like the whole time throughout.
I like to say, once she's on stage dancing, and it's like a big moment for her, it's really sweet because she's really nervous and like she's looking over at her dad and she's really into it. You know, the witnessing of it of Jodie and her mom was funny, a nice payoff to that. But there's a couple of things here that I really liked as well, which is one, like I kind of mentioned earlier, when you see Lady Raven get off the stage for a drink for a second, you get that same shot of him where it's only half of his face in the frame, and you're like, oh, he wants to kill her. And I thought that was really exciting. I thought, okay, this is a direction we're going to go in. And then the other thing I liked is that when he's trying to avoid being looked at by the police a little bit again, is he notices like they're taking like, you know, some of the girls who are fainting because they're just like, there's too much for them. There's like a little medical tent set up in the back. He notices one of these girls that's been placed next to the stairs is looking quite woozy. So he just like picks her up and says, oh, she's about to faint, where do I put her? And he starts being really helpful, and he takes her into the medical area, and he gets like an ice pack, and he's like giving her good advice, and it's all really natural. And like the production like manager, the one who's running the show with a headset, is like, oh man, you're a gem, you're really good at this. And I thought, he's building character witnesses right now, like, so that if they do get questioned on the way out, all these people are going to say, no, he's great, he like saved a girl, and he did. And I'm like, he also pushed a girl down the stairs like 20 minutes ago, but we'll ignore that one. So I like that. I like those details.
Yeah, I think they literally say, like, can we keep him? Like, oh my, like, everyone is so enamored by him, which, again, is just all very funny to me.
Which actually, earlier on, the t-shirt guy asked him what he did for a living, and he said firefighter. And I wasn't sure if that he was telling the truth or not, but as the movie goes on, you realize, oh no, he actually is a firefighter, and a lot of what he knows and his expertise is because of that job. So it does play into it. But it makes sense he'd have some basic, first aid and medical, skills. I imagine all firefighters have to have a little bit of that. Oh,
sure, yeah. And also mentions why he's like so jacked. Later, takes his shirt off, and it's just like, oh, geez.
Yes, he's knocking down doors and saving cats out of trees and whatever else. Alison Pill's done well for herself. Well, not really, because he's a psychopath, serial killer, but otherwise. So they're waiting backstage, and he thinks, oh, this is our way out. But even the exit backstage is a bunch of SWAT team guys. He hears the lady FBI agent or whoever she is, like, sort of like say, hey, he's going to be coming out of this building in the next 20 minutes. We have to catch him. Even the employees need to be checked. Like, every employee, check who's meant to be here, and if he's not on the list, then it's probably him. And she's really thought of everything. I will say though, I think the FBI lady, the British lady, is a little undercooked. Now, I didn't have a problem with it in this first part of the movie, but I think with the way that she kind of comes in to like the story towards the end, it felt like she was meant to feel like a bigger deal or a more prominent character than she actually was. So, I that was one of the things that felt a little disjointed to me. But yeah, this does promote though his next, like, basically the most ballsy movie makes, because shit, like, I can't even get out of the backstage area. So they're at backstage, Lady Raven comes over and sort of hugs Riley and says, oh, I'm so happy you came here, you had a nice time, you're my best friend now, blah, 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 right? And he leans in and says, hey, you heard about my daughter's condition, can I speak to you alone for a minute? And Lady Raven's like, yeah, sure, of course. And says, yeah, come into my dressing room. And she's like, doesn't let anyone else in. And he just, looking right at her, he says some nice things about, oh, Riley had a great time, I want to thank you for that. And it feels genuine when he says that. But here's the thing. I've got this guy kidnapped, and carbon monoxide is going to kill him in the next 5 minutes if I don't get out of here. Yeah, I'm the guy you're looking for. Yeah, that's me. So you're going to take me and my daughter out in your limo so that we waltz through security, or this guy dies. You've got a choice. You kill this innocent man, his name's Derek or whatever it is. Spencer, yeah, sure. Or you catch me. Those are your choices. So he just opens this door, and this is the point where you're like, okay, this singer character just became really important in this movie because now she's like a major player, and this is where all of a sudden, oh, you actually have to be able to act now, which is a little bit more of a task. It's a bit more of an ask, but I like the way the scenes are directed, and I like the context of this scene and the way just kind of like, oh, he's like, this is my one play now. I have to just like blackmail this one person into this.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing we didn't mention is like early, or at least I don't think we said it, but like early on, in the movie when they first get to the concert, he goes to the bathroom and like he checks his phone and like looks at his victim who's like chained up there. So that's like our first indication that we know he's a serial killer.
Oh, I guess that's true. I just kind of knew the premise going in, so I didn't even think about.
I mean, yeah,
the reveal that he is a bad guy.
Yeah, I think most people going in already know it, but like, if for some reason you don't, that's like the first time the movie's telling you, I guess. But, yeah, I don't know. This is a weird plan. Like, I do like where the movie goes from here, but I don't know. Like, I felt like we'd seen him be very resourceful. I was still like waiting for him to maybe think of something a bit more clever. And maybe it was just kind of the jarring nature of like, oh, like I thought this whole movie was going to be at the concert, but now like we're gone or whatever. But yeah, so like I don't know like how I felt about this. Like, oh, like this is your plan. It's also weird because it's like, okay, so I mean, best case scenario, she drops you off, but she knows who you are. Like she can very easily identify you to the cops and stuff after.
Yeah, that part didn't feel super thought through. Although I was thinking he was maybe somehow going to kill her or make some kind of final threat to suggest that, like
you can't just tell people.
Yeah, because I'll do this or I'll do that. I did like this moment because it felt quite ballsy. It felt like a genuine, like not a twist in like a Shyamalan typical way, but just like this is twisting the story into a really weird new direction where this singer now has to actually participate in the story and genuinely likes the kid.
And now she's trapped.
Yeah, and it's very clear that the kid, Riley, doesn't know about this and is like innocent in all this, and it's like, hey, you can't say anything in front of her, kind of thing. So, sure enough, we see them go out of the limo and they're driving along, and she kind of calls an audible, Lady Raven, where when Josh Hartnett says, you can just drop us off near this corner because our car's there, Lady Raven, like thinking on her feet, says, oh, actually, could I see your house, Riley? I'd love to come by and see your house. Let's go there. And he's like, I love the moment where he like pulls out his phone and he's like, I'll press the monoxide button. I'll do it. All right. And she's like sort of like putting kind of her life on the line. And this is where it started to feel a little bit like nepotism. I'm like, wait, don't tell me, Shyamalan, that your daughter's going to end up being like the hero of this movie. And she kind of is in a way because she does save the guy. Even though I think the premise of like the famous pop star using the fact that she has like millions of followers on social media to save someone isn't a terrible idea.
Sure.
Especially since she puts herself in danger to do it as well. So it's like, okay, like I like these character beats. That said, though, I did think that when they were going to the house and it was all awkward, I thought, okay, this is where the rest of the movie's going to be. It's going to be now the second trap of the movie's at the house. And it's inverse because now you've got this person here who knows who he is and he's like dancing around it and she's trying to like figure out a way to like save this innocent man that's been trapped and somehow like get out around this, maybe try and pass a message to his wife or something, like whatever. Like, and that was actually one of the problems I had when it went to the house though, is that there's a wife and son and I thought you were a divorced dad this whole time because there's been no single mention of a wife or a mum the entire time. Like not once does like they mention that mum will be upset about that or something, some passing line. I genuinely thought he was either a single dad or he was divorced and this was like, this is his weekend with the kid kind of thing.
And like I think before they arrive to the house, she like calls the mom to like make sure it's okay and stuff, which again it's like, well, your dad's right there. I think if he can kind of approve it or whatever. Like it seemed like, unless they were separated and they were going to the mom's house versus the dad's house or whatever, that it seemed a little weird.
Weirdly, that made sense to me. Not because, like, obviously, the dad could just approve it himself. He is an adult. But I get the vibe that when it comes to having visitors over, the wife might be quite... Because the one line we get on the phone is the daughter going, she doesn't care about the carpet, Mum. So I'm assuming the mum is just quite... like, we have to clean the house up before anyone comes over and that kind of person, which, fair enough, whatever.
And a lot of this stuff was, like, pretty funny, too. Like, I mean, understandable that for Riley, like, this is probably, like, a dream come true. But, I don't know, I feel like if it was me, I'd kind of be like, yeah, you can come over to my house, but why? Like, this seems a bit strange.
Yeah, I mean, Riley's just, I mean, that's the thing. Obviously, he knows why she's saying this, though. He's not really quite sure what her plan is. Whereas Riley is just like, my God, I'm actually friends with her. She actually wants to be in my life now. This is amazing. But I was actually, as much as there was that little like nitpick with like, oh, there's a wife and son, like somehow they've just not been mentioned up until this point. But other than that, I thought, okay, I'm actually kind of down for the last act of this movie, the last 30-40 minutes being in the house and doing something that completely flips the premise, with it being his place, but someone is kind of there of their own free will, but they're also kind of trapped by the fact that they can't just like openly say or do anything that he's guilty of. She does try to bring up the killer though and see what the wife thinks about the killer, and tries to like say, oh yeah, apparently they say he'll be like someone with OCD who's this age who drives a black car because OCD people like black because you can't see dirt on it as easily and it makes them feel better. And she's like, oh, that's super interesting. And then she's trying to stall, so she's like, oh, I can play a song for everyone. There's a piano here, I'll sing one of the songs.
That's actually a really funny line where like I think obviously like Josh Hartnett's trying to like rush her along. He's like, well, you probably have to be going. Also, I don't think they really mention it, but like, yeah, because they said that this one was like an afternoon concert that they put on, which I assume meant that they have a concert in the evening. It's like at no point it seems like anyone's like, oh, well, you probably got to get ready for your next show or whatever.
Yeah, I would have thought that early on as well, but I guess what they mean is that the main show was Friday night and then they added a Saturday afternoon show
okay.
At the end of the block. But I mean,
yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it's funny. He's like, all right, I guess you probably need to get going. And then the way it's like they move like with the camera too, like the camera just like I feel like just shoots over to the piano and she's just like, you have a piano, I can play it. It's like again, like Riley probably doesn't care because she's just so like ecstatic this is happening, but like logistically, like it kind of like, all right, this is weird that like you're hanging out with us, like that you don't want to leave.
To be fair, I think it's weird the way because he just stands up and says, yeah, you should probably be going, I'll walk you out. He just sort of jumps up and says that like almost mid-sentence, so obviously the rest of the family are like, wait, why are you trying to rush her out? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So it's weird from multiple perspectives, but she grabs Riley's phone as she sits down next to her at the piano. And the reason being is that she wants to take a selfie with Riley at the end, and Riley's like, oh, I don't have my phone. That's okay, we'll use your dad's. And she just grabs Josh Hartnett's phone out of his hand and takes the selfie, and then just storms over to the bathroom and locks the door, and he chases after her, and like, it's starting to get a little bit, and this is like, honestly, as far as like a directorial choice goes, I actually really like this next choice that Shyamalan's made, is that she locks herself in the bathroom, and in that time she's trying to do a few things on the phone, which we'll talk about. But the entire time we never see outside the door. We just hear banging on the door, and we hear the rest of the family like, Dad, what are you doing? And like, the wife's like, Cooper, calm down. Wait, why are you upset? What's going on? Why are you acting weird? And eventually it goes quiet though. And it all happens behind the door. You never leave this bathroom that you're with Lady Raven. So it's a really nice little directorial touch where you're like, is he killing the rest of the family right now? Like, I genuinely didn't know if they were dead. When he comes back to the bathroom and Lady Raven finally opens it for him, I genuinely didn't know if they were still alive or if he had to do something bad. And I think one of the critiques, they kind of like successfully handed the movie over to Lady Raven here, right? Depending on if you think that was a good idea or not is another question, but I think it kind of worked. I think the problem I have with all the stuff that comes after the Lady Raven stuff, because Lady Raven basically leaves the movie at a certain point because she's out of the story, and then the rest of it ends up being about the wife and the husband. And I'm like, the wife's like she just got introduced here in this part of the movie. If anything, I'm like, you should have went back to the daughter. The daughter should have been the final character to like have scenes with the dad, because the entire story started with their relationship. It should end with their relationship. So that's my one big complaint. But I actually really like this directorial choice to just never look outside that door, where we just stay with her as she's talking to the man who's been kidnapped and asking for any signs of like where he is. He describes like a lion statue that was broken and a blue door, and she just goes onto a live stream on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever and says, hey, I need help. Someone's trapped at this location. Can someone, like, does anyone know this lion statue, this blue door? And she basically saves this guy's life because someone recognizes what she's talking about and they get the police over there. So by the time that he gets the phone back and he looks at the security camera feed of the room, he's like, how did you do this? He's like, almost a little bit impressed. He's like, that was ballsy. It's almost like he is a little impressed at her ingenuity because, you know, he's so good at thinking of his way out of situations, and she's kind of done something here. But it puts her in jeopardy because now she's alone with a serial killer. Like, what's he going to do now? So, like, yeah, I mean, if you look at a meta level, Shyamalan's making his daughter this, like, just ultra hero in this moment. But it is actually quite a compelling scene that she's using her following online as a way to save someone else. So, it was...
Yeah, I mean, story-wise, it works. Like... Yeah, it's like it's strange that all of a sudden she's like a big character, but it's not like I didn't believe any of these. Like it's surprising, but I didn't, you know, like find it unbelievable what happens.
I mean, she effectively becomes the protagonist for a few scenes at this part of the movie, and then he goes to leave with her in the car, wants to tie her hands together. He's got like a secret bag behind a panel that he takes out with all these murdering supplies. And they're going to leave, but, you know, when the garage door opens up, the family's standing there, and he realizes that they've claimed... And this is actually one of the little details that I actually quite liked in this, is that he mentions, I've never thought of my home in this context, which is the ways that someone could escape it, which says to me that he does think about that with everyone else, or with everywhere else that he goes to murder people or kidnaps people from. Like, he always thinks about the exits and like how to get in and out of it, but he's never thought about that with his house, because he even has a little line here where he mutters to himself, you don't let the two lives touch, you keep them separate. And he's been a very successful serial killer for that reason. So there was a little bit of like just implications of like how he's been so good at this whole time, which I also enjoyed.
I did think it was funny to I think it's around here that like Lady Raven like tries like getting like one up on him, like she starts like, you know, treating him you know, like she's his mom or whatever, and saying like, you've been a bad boy.
Yeah, okay, so she basically tries to do the end of Friday the 13th part 2, right where she pretends that she's the mother, because one of the things she brings up when she listened to the FBI profiler talk about who this killer is, he's probably got mummy issues, you know, to sum it up in a quick phrase. So she basically starts to try and give him this performance as his mother and say, you could still be a good boy, you could still do this, you could still do that. And he gets a little... He even calls her mum at the end. It's not like he actually is tricked by it. Like, he says it kind of like, I know what you're doing, mom. Yeah. like you know, he gets what she's going for. I don't know if I like that part. I'm still up to it. Like, on the one hand, it's kind of funny if the movie like knows that it's being stupid here, but if you're taking it seriously, it's definitely not a good moment.
Oh, right, yeah. I just like that. It kind of feels like this role reversal where, you know, at first he was the main character, we were following him, and then he had all these attempts that would just get thwarted, and then now we're kind of like, you know, following her and trying to see how she's gonna escape. And I like that, you know, similar to how earlier in the movie he would have seen something that would have been like, oh, I can do this or whatever, and then it doesn't work. Like, she's like, oh, I know what I can do, I have this play, and then I just like how like quickly he shuts her down. He's like, no, I know what you're doing, stop it.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, like, forced references are annoying, so maybe it would have pissed me off, but part of me almost wanted him to turn around and go, I'm not Jason Voorhees, shut up. Yeah. But yeah, it's because the family's standing out there, because her driver, who she also texted quickly when she had the phone, has called the police show up, and this is kind of where the movie for me goes down. Like, I think it's from here to the end where I'm not as into it, because every choice it makes from this point on, I'm kind of not really that excited about. For one, he's so insanely good at like disappearing and reappearing and like sneaking away with somehow the SWAT team not getting to him. You know, because he just like the SWAT team goes out of the house, they sort of sweep through it, they don't find him, and then he ends up somehow like becoming her limo driver, so that he's like he's the one driving the limo, and she's now trapped in the back of the limo, handcuffed to the, I don't know, there's like a banister up against the side of the inside of the limo, and I'm like, okay, so now his like life has been ruined. Like they figured out who he is. He's not going to have his family life anymore. Whatever else, that's all fine. But okay, what's he going to do with her? And it ends up not being that exciting. What happens here, where she just kind of like is able to break the banister free, and she walks out into a group of fans who kind of like surround her, and he can't really get to her. So
it's Lady Raven. What's she doing here?
Yeah, and then obviously the SWAT team show up and like shoot into the car. And then he somehow escaped this because he's left like the SWAT helmet that he was disguised in, like sitting propped up in the car. But he's actually like put on some of her merch that was in the car, and now he's just walking down the street in a hoodie. So he keeps getting away, and it's like really 1,000,000 to 1. Like these are legitimate Michael Myers-esque, like escaping out of the scene moments.
Yeah, I feel like maybe like you probably could have gotten away with it once, but it feels weird that like, all right, we kind of have this swerve or whatever where it's like, oh, all of a sudden like she's like kind of like the main character, like the big antagonist now, and it's we're seeing like the back and forth between them, but then once the scene's done, it's like
that's
she's
her. She's
gone.
Yeah.
And
that's the wild thing. See, if they'd stuck with her and it was about her getting away from him now, I'd have been like, you know what, that was a bit of a change halfway through, but I kind of accepted it. I kind of got into it and was like enjoying some of the things they were doing. But once they dropped that, it was like, okay, you can't do this again. You can't swerve me. The only thing you could swerve me to now that I'd be okay with is back to the daughter, because it would make sense to end with the daughter and feel fulfilling. Instead, the wife is still back at the house, and this is obviously a trap they're setting for him, because why would she stay at the house on her own? Because they mentioned the kids are with like an aunt or uncle, her brother or sister, just for anyone who's unclear with who that is. And the FBI lady's like, yes, well, there'll be 2 cop cars outside. You're perfectly safe. And it's honestly, the reveal that he's sitting in the kitchen in the dark, like, over to the side, is probably the most cliched thing this movie does. I feel like I've seen this in so many other movies. Is this type of like, I'm already in the house kind of thing.
I would say I don't necessarily like hate this last third of the movie or so, but yeah, I agree that it does feel significantly like weaker like to the other parts of the movie that like the concert stuff I was really into, and then when it kind of breaks away from that, I was like, okay, like this, I didn't expect this to be where it's going, but I'm still into it. And then this last part, I don't hate it, but it is kind of like, oh, okay, like maybe I would have liked a little something different.
I think that's my problem, is that I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing now. This feels a bit lamer than everything else. And like I said, I think not ending with the daughter being like the primary character that's still playing off of him to like wrap up that, like more of a reaction of her realization of who her dad is. Like I really needed more of that. Like I think that really was what would have set the movie off at the end.
And it would have made sense because we got in so much context for their relationship. And like you said, like the mother was just such a non-character that now that so much of the movie is hinging upon their relationship and stuff. And it's kind of like, oh.
And I'm not even mad that, okay, it starts with her, because I thought, okay, this is suspenseful. When's he going to show up, right? But when he starts talking, right, and he's clearly pissed off, right? He's walking about topless. He's got like a big sort of chopping knife in his hand, and he starts talking. He basically does like the closest thing this movie has to a twist is that he reveals that he's figured out that his wife's responsible in some way for this entire thing. And I went, what do you mean, how? And to be fair, the explanation like doesn't cheapen the rest of the movie, because it's not like she knew the whole time, but she got suspicious and she actually called in the tip of like where one of his, like, because she followed him to one of his like safe houses or his like murder spots. Because basically we find out that he's been using abandoned buildings that he knows are abandoned because they've got violated like fire codes, which is a nice way to tie into his job. So that's fine. That's cool. But she actually left the receipt for the concert tickets at one of the scene that she called in. So she basically set him up for this, and this is why, because he didn't make a mistake. And I think if they'd maybe like leaned on the idea of like him being like really bamboozled the whole movie of like, how did they figure out I was here? Like, I don't make mistakes. How did this happen? Maybe this would have had a bit more weight to it. But finding out the wife was having suspicions at the end when she was barely a character until 10 minutes ago just didn't have any weight. Like, I don't care that you had suspicions. And if it feels that we're just doing this whole exposition of how you were starting to figure things out when I don't really care, because I didn't even think you existed until almost an hour into the movie. I thought you were dead or divorced.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's another thing too. I heard like some people kind of pick apart where they're just like, who the hell would have like a paper receipt for anything anymore? Which I mean, it's kind of funny to think about. Like it's not like a big thing that, like, I don't think that takes away from the movie or whatever. Especially like an older person might print out his tickets or something as a precaution. But it is kind of funny to think about that, though. Like, oh yeah, like
especially since I don't think these are the sort of thing that you would buy online. This is not the sort of thing you go up to the box office and, you know, buy the tickets for and get a physical receipt handed to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a little bit strange, but I mean, I don't mind that so much as like, why are we doing this with the wife? Like, if anything, the final, I mean, at the very least, the daughter should have shown up and been like in the danger, so that he has to make, because this is the thing. He sits down with her, and the one part of this that I liked a little bit is when he starts talking about how usually when he kills people, he feels calm, and it makes him feel better, and like he feels peaceful. But he doesn't feel that right now, because the wife set this up. He actually feels angry in a way that he's never felt before. Like, he is furious, and I was like, oh, that's actually quite scary.
Yeah, like, I feel so much rage towards you, and he's doing it in like a very calm manner. But he, like, Hartnett really sells it though. Yeah.
Also, she says, "Hey, can we just finish off this like celebratory pie that we made for Riley?" And he's like, "Sure, but it won't last very long though. I'll eat it in 6 bites." And she's like, "I know." And I'm like, I guess that's a reference to him being OCD. It's because he knows exactly how many bites this pie is going to take him. But of course, the twist here is that she expected him here. The police are waiting. There's actually a couple of SWAT guys already in the house with tasers, and she actually dosed him with some of his own stuff. Like, she found his bag with his murder supplies in it, and there's like a, I don't know, something powdery. I don't know what it was, but
something that makes people go to sleep.
Yeah,
basically. And
she's put it in his pie, and he notices. He comes towards her, and there's guys with tasers waiting. And I just kind of was shrugging during this, where I'm like, okay, I guess this is a place to take this. I just wish the last like 15-20 minutes were different. I think my opinion of this movie would probably be really positive if I didn't feel the last 15 minutes were just such a unfulfilling, different thing than the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I'm not too mad about it. I don't hate it, but it definitely is just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing. It's not as exciting.
It's the weakest part of the movie. I was missing the daughter being there. At this point, I was missing even Lady Raven being here, because at least I was enjoying following that stuff as well. But the one thing I did like, though, was right at the very end. But as he's been like taken out in chains, because he actually just says it loud at one point to the wife, he hates that this is ending in such a generic way, but it'll just have to be a murder-suicide. Like, he's not planning on living. He's planning on killing himself so he doesn't have to go to prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, after killing her, of course, which is the dark implication there. But when he's getting taken away in chains outside and the kids arrive back at the house, Riley comes up and hugs him. And I'm like, oh, do more with this. Come on. Have a conversation or something. And we don't quite get that. But he does do a thing here where he goes to he's like, he wants to fix the bike that's been knocked over for his kids. Like, he wants to do one last dadly thing before he leaves. And when he gets in the prison van and he's been tucked away, I did really like the shot that kind of the camera sort of like comes in and tracks along the ground and reveals a spoke is missing from the bike wheel. And then you see him like take it out and start to unpick his locks, and he just sort of smiles creepily like Norman Bates at the camera. And that's, I actually like that little reveal of like, oh, this is how he's going to get out of this.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about like Shyamalan, like if you don't like the story beats or the dialogue, like I get it, but he's really good like at setting up shots and stuff, and this all like looked really good.
But that's the movie, aside from the little mid-credit scene, which is T-shirt guy is watching the news. And then there's like, hey, we caught the butcher. That was his name. We caught the butcher. He was a family man who was at this concert today. Here's a photograph of the killer. And then just this guy's reaction of like, I'm never talking to anyone at work ever again.
Yeah, it's strange because I actually do think that the movie is quite funny, but this was like a little like too much for me. I'm like, okay, like this feels like the movie is acknowledging it's a comedy now. Like I liked it before when it was kind of like, you know, like I feel like you couldn't tell or it wasn't being so obvious. But I mean, it's not like the worst scene or whatever.
It was funny without ever admitting it was a comedy, and now this was like just a comedy scene from another movie, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Honestly, though, I would have found it funnier if he just didn't say anything. See if it was just his reaction and like just like a look of horror in his face, and then cut to the rest of the credits. I think I'd enjoyed that more.
Yeah, like that would have been more subtle. Yeah, instead of him like, yeah, he's like flipping out. He's like, I'm not talking to anyone anymore. And then I think the very last thing he says is like he shouts someone's names like Kadisha or something. It's like, all right, that's just the last line of the movie. It's just him like yelling to someone off camera. Like, all right.
Yeah. It was an interesting choice, but like you say, it kind of shows that he's not taking this too seriously.
Yeah.
There's an element of fun being had here with this premise. But that's funny though, because I was so into the father-daughter relationship early on because it was so natural that it was just kind of a shame that the movie didn't really like pay that off completely at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that seemed to be kind of like the crux of the movie is it's like, you know, again, excuse me. Yeah, like so much of the movie is like almost the sitcom thing where it's like, all right, he's a serial killer, but he's also just trying to be a good dad. And, you know, I thought there was so much fun stuff to play with there. And then, yeah, it's kind of a shame that the second half of the movie just really drops that and there's very little resolution. I did think it was nice, though, like when she comes and like hugs him at the end, like, it, you know, we could have used more, but at least we get a little bit of that.
I was at least glad we saw her again because I really thought for a second we weren't even going to see her at the end of the movie. And it would be, admittedly, it'd be very contrived for Lady Raven to show up. But I mean, you could sort of maybe say, oh, she wanted to see him get arrested. She's happy to see this guy go away who scared her, kind of thing. I mean, that said, though, we do see her go to the neighborhood where the guy was being held kidnapped, and she meets him. And
oh, right.
She hugs the girl that like recognized, like the one who called it in and got her uncle to, you know, her you know, her dad's brother or sister. Just keep that in mind. But so we see the reaction of the guy she saved meeting her for the first time. So that was a nice little moment to cap off the Lady Raven stuff.
Yeah, I forgot about that. And like, not to like overthink stuff too much. Like, I think it is a nice little ending that he like unpicks his locks and stuff. But I can't help but think like, okay, well, I mean, what are you gonna do now though? Like, I don't think you can open the door from inside and then I don't know when people like let you out, like there's probably gonna be like so many guards there with guns and stuff that like I don't know I don't know how you
are overthinking. Like this is just meant to be, he's always got himself out of every situation he's been in so far. This is just the start of him doing it again. We don't get to see how he gets away with the rest of it, but he's already gotten away with sillier things earlier in this movie.
It's true. Yeah.
So it feels in like I think that is overthinking. To thinking about the context, like I assume he's going to kick the door open and like climb in the roof or something. And actually, at one point when he's getting tased before he goes down with the third taser, he tries to pull a Michael Myers and shove his thumbs in the guy's eyes. He sort of launches himself at him.
I actually kind of like that scene. It's like, oh, like this guy is, because again, we don't see him doing much like physical stuff throughout the movie, and when he does, it's very like it's just like pushing somewhere on. So I like we get this little glimpse of like, oh no, he is very much a threat, you know.
Yeah, and one of the things when we're talking about the psychological profile of him, they sort of talk about how, oh, like maybe a parent might have noticed that he was different as a kid, which I guess is tying into why he keeps having visions of his mother throughout the movie. But basically whoever this is very good at seeming normal to everyone else, even though they're kind of faking it. And that's kind of setting up that, yeah, he is charming to everyone. People lower their guard. They think he's a nice guy until it's too late, and boom, he starts talking about carbon monoxide and how quickly it kills someone. And you're like, wait, what? Why are you telling me this? Oh dear. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, honestly, talking through it, it makes me realize that my sort of mixed opinion really comes from the last 20 minutes. I think it's really that last 20 minutes that put a bit of a downer into me. Just all the directions it kind of took. It took too many like turns too many, I guess, towards the end.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with that. Like I wouldn't say like it affected my enjoyment like that negatively, but it is definitely my least favorite part of the movie, and it would have been nice to maybe see something a little different.
Yeah. So with all that said, though, scene of the movie, Tim.
It's tough. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. Like I actually did have a lot of fun with the movie, but I'm trying to think if there's like one specific scene that like really, stood out for me. I think I'll go with the first scene with him and the t-shirt guy. Yeah, I don't know, it really tickled me, like just the way he was like so enamored by Josh Hartnett and then just so willing to give him information. Like I thought that Hartnett was doing like a good job of like showing him being like a very charming guy that can maybe disarm people, but then also just kind of got me in the mood of the movie to like not take it too seriously, like, oh, like this is like kind of goofy the way people are just like so willing to help him and how he's able to like get stuff done. So I mean there's a lot of good scenes in the movie, but I think I'll go with that.
Yeah, I think conceptually I really like the whole, like, we're in the bathroom with her whilst like we don't know what's going on the other side of the door and she's trying to like help this guy. I like that conceptually, but I think because of like what I was more invested in throughout the movie, I think I won't pick that, but it's definitely close just based on like the concept and the direction of it. I think I'm a little conflicted. I think for me, the joke answer is probably the reaction of the other girl when she's on stage, but sure. If I'm picking like a more serious like option, I think the problem is all the little bits that I like a lot in the first half are all kind of spread out. Like none of them are kind of clumped into one scene, kind of thing. Like there's no one where I say that's the pinnacle of it, because it's like, oh, he tries to get out this way and he discovers this, and he goes out that way, he discovers that. So I guess for the sheer ballsiness of it, I'll say when he just goes in and tells Lady Raven who he is as his major gambit to get out. Just because it was genuinely exciting to have him just do it, because, okay, what now? And the movie didn't necessarily fulfill everything that it could have after that point, but, it definitely made me go, oh god, they better have something good now, since we're going down this path. So I will say that. But like you say, there's a lot of good moments in this movie for sure. All right. MVP of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is there's a lot of characters I liked. I think, like we mentioned, the actress that plays Riley did a really good job. But I mean, I think I just have to go with Hartnett. I mean, it is, his movie, and he's not like an actor I really have thought too much about. I mean, I don't even know if like he's been in much lately, but this definitely felt like a big like.
Well, there's
swing.
One other big movie he was in this year.
Do I know what it is? Or am I forgetting like something?
Actually, last year maybe. I think it was last year now. But time is just all blending together.
Oh, what is that? I can't even think of it.
He was in Oppenheimer.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
It was a small role, admittedly, but it was there.
But I mean, he's one of those guys that, like, for a while he's just kind of like that generic Hollywood hunk, and I think this is kind of like an exciting time in people's career where they're like a little older now, and I mean they're still hunks or whatever, but they're playing like they're going for these more interesting character roles instead of just generic good looking guy or whatever. Yeah,
he was in a lot of stuff in the late 90s into the early 2000s, and then it disappeared a little bit for a while, or at least it felt like he did. I mean, if I look at his list of credits, he does have stuff through all that period. It's just that I mean, I guess 30 Days a Night and Black Dahlia were kind of these like sort of bad movies that he did a little bit later, so he was still getting work. Interestingly though, I noticed something from 2023 called Die Hard, and I went, what is this? He plays himself apparently, because he's just listed as Josh Hartnett as the character.
Okay.
So he plays himself, and the movie stars Kevin Hart. Hence Die Hard.
Good job.
It's probably terrible.
Came up with that.
Yeah. It also has John Travolta. Jean Reno is in it. It's probably terrible, I have no doubt, but
you can save that for extra reels. We don't need to go into that.
I mean, it's not a horror movie, don't worry.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I think Hartnett is great in this. Like, he does he has a lot to play with, and he does a good job of being a convincing killer who is constantly trying to like use his charm and good nature to get out of situations. And I think it might have been a much tougher movie with someone that wouldn't be able to pull off those parts. And like you said, some people might come away thinking it's not great just because some of the like disarming way that it's filmed or the dialogue he's saying, but for me, I think it worked. I thought it did a great job.
Yeah. I almost feel like whenever I watch a Shyamalan movie, I want to say the MVP is the cinematography, because it's usually the thing I come out being the most enthusiastic about. But I mean, I think Hart did a good job. I think the girl played Riley did a good job. And there's some kid parts, or bit parts, just not kid parts, bit parts that are pretty solid in of themselves. But I think it really is between those two. And obviously Hartnett has way more to do, so it feels right to give it to him. But I was very impressed with the kid actress playing Riley.
Like you said, if she ended up being the like third act, like emotional crutch or whatever that comes back, and that's what the movie hinges on, then I could easily see it giving it to her. But the fact that she disappears kind of halfway through the movie, it's just hard to.
It feels like if you end it with either like him going on the run but dragging her with him, and she has to make the choice to want to try and get away from him, that could be a big climax of the movie, is her making that choice. Or maybe she makes the choice to like sort of turn them in if they do get away, and she realizes who he is and chooses to turn her dad in. Like, there's a couple of different choices you can make to really dramatize and make it all be about their relationship with each other, which I think would have been the right choice to go in based on what the first half of the movie was. But they went the way they went, and we can't really do anything about it now. But shame. Also worth mentioning, I think there was two guest singers at different points in the movie. I assume those were both real music artists.
The one that actually like gets on stage and sings, I didn't recognize, but the one that I guess is a bit more comedic, that kind of has like, that's doing some stuff like backstage or whatever. I recognize, so that's the actor is Kid Cudi, which I honestly I don't know any of his music, but he was in X. I feel like there might have been like one or two other things that he's been in. But I forgot, that was kind of a funny scene too, where like he's obviously like being a nightmare to other people, but then like he's walking by like Riley and Cooper, and like he kind of smiles at Riley, and she's like, oh, and then like he kind of like gives these like little winky eyes to Josh Hartnett, and then kind of thought like, okay, is this another avenue he's gonna take to try to escape? Like he's gonna flirt with this guy and do something, which nothing ends up happening. But I thought that was like, oh, okay, that's like another funny way to possibly find an escape.
Do you know what? Now that you've said it, I can sort of think of him in X, but I would never have gotten that otherwise, because obviously he looks very, very different here.
Oh yeah, like he has this crazy wig on, and it's strange because it's like he's not a huge actor, but it's a very small part. Like,
it feels like this is a cameo more because of the music side of his career than the fact that he can actually act. Because I didn't know he was a musician, I don't think, from X. I just thought he was an actor.
Yeah, I know he whatever. It was like a hip hop guy, but like I probably sound so old. But like I couldn't
are an old
tell you
man,
any of
yes.
his. I couldn't tell you any of his songs or anything though.
Yeah, fair enough. I just before the comments come in say I can't believe they didn't mention those real famous people that popped up in the movie. All right, what are you rating Trap, Tim?
So it's a bit uneven. I mean, again, like we said, like it's mostly just that last third or so of the movie that falters a bit, but I don't know, the rest of it I think is a lot of fun. Again, like I don't know if I can necessarily say that it's a good movie. I understand if you're taking it a bit more seriously, it might not be your cup of tea, but I just think Shyamalan is interesting. He makes big swings. He has like good actors in his stuff, and it looks good. And certainly there's stuff you can criticize if it's not your cup of tea. I get it, but for me, I just think it's fun, and I went along for the ride, and I had a pretty good time. I can't go like above and beyond, because of like some of the stuff and like the ending, but I don't know, I think I'm gonna go with like a 7, like a still pretty high score. Like I don't know, I really can't say that the movie ever bored me or it made me angry. Like even that last little bit that we weren't in love with, like it's a bit of a bummer, but it doesn't like ruin too much of the movie for me. It's more just kind of like, okay, this is how it ends. Like, it's
well executed enough. It's just not what the movie set me up for. It feels like just a weird direction story wise. I don't know if I can go a 7, because a 7 to me is when you're saying the movie is good, and I think that's just a bit too positive based on the ending. But I did enjoy a lot of it. I do think it was an interesting watch, and I do think at some point I'm probably going to want to watch it again, and that take that for whatever that's worth. So I will be a bit more reserved because I did not like where the last 20 minutes went, but I'll still give it a 6.
Not bad.
So there you go. That's a review of Trap. So, thank you for joining us. You can support Screams After Midnight and get a bonus episode every month over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, as well as some other goodies. In fact, even more streams, which is the other bonus thing we do every month. Sometimes there's smaller things where we'll do like a little top 5 that's maybe half an hour long or whatever, but it's become a bit of a tradition in January to do a big, like, here's all the movies we know are coming out this year, and just kind of like give our thoughts, expectations on each one.
It's a big preview issue.
Yeah, a big preview episode. Yeah. So we're recording this one a little bit in advance, so I don't know if it's already went out or if it's coming out soon. But either way, that's the thing in January. So look forward to it. It was still 2024 when we recorded this, for the record, just in case if we reference,
got it right under the wire.
Yeah, if we reference this as this year, it meant 2024 because we're still in 2024. But so yeah, go check out Patreon, and that also gets you bonuses for all the other shows as well. So go have a look at that stuff. But that is us. I don't know if I should tell you what's coming next, because the order of movies is a little bit up in the air for a little bit. But what I can promise you is that we will be doing more 2024 horror movies that we missed. And we'll go from there. In fact, I think the next episode should be the vote winner, which we don't actually have an answer for yet, so we don't know. But the vote is for the exclusive episode on Patreon. It'll be another 2024 movie, not one of the bigger ones because it's a bonus episode. And then we'll have some really big 2024 movies that we're still not done over the next, honestly, 3 months. So there's a lot to do. Like we have, there's so many horror movies in 2024 that are worth covering that we're going to be taking up. All the way up to some probably early April before we can do our top 10 of the year. That's kind of the level we're at with all this. So yeah, let us know what you think of Trap in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that usual stuff helps out a bunch if you do. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.